Now, the interesting thing in Germany, which I actually mentioned in my book, is after the hyperinflation stopped in 23, the Nazi Party actually gained a lot of seats. That the next year, the putsch, Hitler's putsch, was actually about 2 weeks before the inflation peaked. That's what actually provided the environment that made it possible. The next year, the Nazis won a lot of seats for the first time, and there's another right-wing nationalist party that won even more seats, and their platform was that they would punish the people responsible for the hyperinflation. Now, the irony of that is a member of the Nationalist Party was the treasurer of Germany in 1915, 1916, and actually created the policies that led to the hyperinflation. They did not blame themselves. They didn't blame their party member. They blamed foreigners being responsible. They blamed speculators. They blamed the Jews. No government ever blames itself for creating inflation, ever. And the two groups of people always blamed are speculators and some foreign source, some foreign element, some foreign something. Without exception, without exception. But when you start reading that, and you will, and that's already happened actually, in the last few weeks. Other than that, the South America countries have perennial inflation, Brazil, Chile, Peru. Brazil has the longest history of inflation in the world. Some people claim 500 years, it's a bit much, it's more like 450. And it's a great study for like how can inflation go on and on and on and on. And I actually call this slow inflation. First they had slow hyperinflation, meaning it took many, many decades or hundreds of years to create the value of your currency, millions and billions and trillions of times. Then they actually had fast hyperinflation where it happened really quickly. And now they've sort of cleaned up their act and they're in much better shape than the United States. So, other than South America, the collapse of communism gave rise to a whole bunch of hyperinflations. Yugoslavia had the second worst hyperinflation in the world at that time, only Hungary after Russia and the Ukraine were like pretty close. Basically what happened, they ran huge budget deficits for decades, which the United States has also been doing. And then finally, when their economies were exposed to the West and the open systems, everything collapsed and the currency devalued to nothing. Keynesian economics, and I'm not as strong an anti-Keynesian as many people. His ideas have been very misrepresented and misapplied by governments. It's adopted because of the 30s depression, and it led to chronic budget deficits. Now, that's not what Keynes said to do. He said in bad times you have deficits, in good times you should make extra money and pay off the deficits. Governments just said, hey, let's just have a deficit every year. It looks good. It's the easy way to go. So that's not what Keynes said to do. Bretton Woods in 1944, this backed the US dollar with gold. This is an international currency agreement. And other currencies were then backed by the US dollar. The problem with this, Bretton Woods was dissolved in 71 and all the gold back and was taken away. So we still have this system, sort of. Our currencies flow when they've had since the late 70s. But people still see the dollar as a solid currency, even though it's not backed. As long as the gold was there, that was okay. But the gold has not been there for a long time. And plus, as we have said in this meetup many, many times, Fort Knox is not supposed to have been audited for 55 years, maybe 56 at this point. No one knows how much gold the United States has. Nobody. Has no one's law, no one's allowed to see. It could be $5 worth. No, we don't know. And when, think if you were a company on Wall Street and said, oh, I don't need to be audited, you can trust my books. Right. Now, what happened when the U.S. foreign governments tried to maintain Bretton Woods in the 70s, this actually led to the U.S. inflation being spread throughout the world because governments had to print currency to buy dollars. And so not only did the U.S. have a lot of inflation in the 70s, Europe had a lot of inflation too. It actually spread to many, many other countries. So the U.S., just like the U.S., also spread the subprime crisis everywhere in the world. We also did this. And so after Bretton Woods, she got currency, which means we're backed by nothing. And that's once you entered that area, you're in a dangerous area. It's a theory in economics that all fiat currencies eventually devalue to zero. Everyone. So from 71, we were fiat currency. Also, we devalued the dollar multiple times. In 73, there was a devaluation of 10%. There was a 7-something% devaluation in December 71. And keep in mind, the US got lots of other countries to hold huge reserves of US dollars, didn't overnight they devalue the currency 10%. And then it would make you angry if you think about those. And some of the biggest holders of dollars were actually the oil-producing countries in the Middle East, who then got even. And now you only got the other side, like, oh, look at how they cut off our oil, so nasty to us. Yeah, well, we actually screwed them first. Okay, inflation was stopped by high Federal Reserve interest rates in 1980. They were raised to long-term rates around 14-15% at the top, short-term rates 20-21%, something like that. This cannot be done today. This is no longer an option. It is impossible. And we'll get to that soon enough. Inflationary aspects of the credit crisis. Bailouts and stimulus, depends on who you look and read at, over $10 trillion so far. Most of the bailout money has not been counted as debt. Keep that in mind, because it's supposed to be paid back. So it's not debt. And like the chance of most of it being paid back is probably minimal, or less than minimal. Interest rates are around 0 in the US, Japan, and UK. This is very inflationary. It's basically free money. US and UK are admitted to quantitative easing. This means you print money to buy your bonds. And the US is doing this at a really rapid clip. And I said in my blog entry when they actually found the amount that was bought that day, and it was around 40% of the bonds sold that day were bought by us with printed money. So that's a serious level of printing. Now, this is even a more eyebrow-raising thing. The current budget deficit this year is estimated to come in 1.8 trillion. It already has been $1 trillion by June. The previous high was 0.4 trillion. So this is over 4 times the previous high. And I actually predicted 2 years ago or something in this meetup that by the end of the Bush administration, there'd probably be a budget deficit of $1 trillion. Well, I was wrong. And people say, that can't be. Well, it's 1.8 trillion. This is Bush's last budget. This is not an Obama budget. Now the really bad thing about this, not that it's just so huge, which it is, but only 53% of the budget is covered by taxes. So the other 47% is either has to be borrowed or printed money. There's a lot of printed money. Now, this is also causing the national debt to skyrocket. And that's somewhere between 11-12 trillion officially. And officially is the key word. They are all balance sheet items in the budget and the debt and the budget. You know, this is like the rosy scenario. And it's rising very fast. It's not going to get better as the decade proceeds. You're going to get more and more payments for Social Security and Medicaid. Of course, baby boomers are retired. Let's look at this national debt. National debt is so high, interest payments would absorb all the taxes if interest would raise to the levels they were in the 70s. You know, assuming we have the same tax, everything else being equal, which it always isn't, of course. But the debt keeps going up each year, too, quite a lot. So if we had like an average of 17% interest rates, like in 1980 when Volcker came along, raised interest rates, all of our tax money would be used to pay interest on the national debt. And we would have no money to actually run the country. So, of course, you'd have to print all that money. And this